How do you lose your best customers by giving them exactly what you think they want? In September 2025, Arc'teryx did exactly that. It built a campaign for its Chinese customer around everything it believed they wanted. Within 48 hours, those same customers had turned on the brand, and its parent company had lost around $1.6 billion in market value. Almost everyone called it a marketing mistake. This is incomplete. The real reason is something every strategic operator should be able to see coming. I'll walk you through what actually went wrong here and the frameworks that could have caught it before it ever happened. I'm Li Bin Hong. My background is operations and strategy, from development to execution. A sound strategy getting rejected by the audiences nobody accounted for, it's a failure I have seen repeated for years across industries. Start with what happened. Arc'teryx is an outdoor brand built on environmental commitment. On September 19, 2025, it staged a firework display with a celebrated Chinese artist titled Rising Dragon on the Himalayan plateau in Tibet. 52 seconds of fireworks and nearly 5,000 meters above sea level. It was the anchor activation of Arc'teryx's Pursuit of Beauty campaign in China. That campaign sat behind a bigger growth plan. Arc'teryx targeted $5 billion revenue by 2030, with North America and China each reach about $2 billion. By Monday morning, the Chinese language internet had reached its verdict, over 92 million Weibo engagements, most of them about environmental damage and cultural disregard. The parent company, Enter Sports, dropped more than 7% intraday. A formal investigation followed. It cited 30 hectares of damaged grassland, soil disturbance, and firework residues across the plateau. Both the artist's studio and Arc'teryx were held legally accountable, and local officials were dismissed. So if this wasn't really about the marketing, what was it? The creative was only the trigger. The real cost sits one level down in two audiences the brand never took seriously. The first is environmental and natural scientists. Any qualified scientist, Chinese or Western or anyone else, would have flagged that same problem. High-altitude alpine ecosystems are notoriously fragile. Recovery time running into decades. And firework residue, powder, and plastic debris are difficult to clean from grass mat and soil. That's not a contested political position. It's a baseline environmental science. The brand appears not to have asked those scientists. The second audience is the deeper myth. Arc'teryx read Chinese middle-class outdoor enthusiasts as aspirational, nationalistic, premium, drawn to a celebrated artist spectacle. That read was incomplete. The same consumer is also environmental conscious. They bought Arc'teryx specifically for its environmental positioning. They were also culturally aware. Educated Chinese consumers know that Himalayan peaks are sacred in Tibetan religion tradition. They know that the purity of the mountain matters in that tradition. Any campaign on this terrain has to respect that. The customer had already done its culture homework. The brand had not. When the activation contradicted what the consumer already understood, the customer named the contradiction on social media before the brand finished its press response. So Arc'teryx made two mistakes at once. It skipped one audience completely. No scientist was asked whether the plan would damage the plateau. And the audience it did build for, it read too thinly. The brand's picture of its target customer was thinner than the customer actually was. There's a term for what Arc'teryx missed. Silent veto audiences. These are stakeholders who can withhold legitimacy without ever needing to formally block. They don't sit in your approval chain. They don't call your office. They publish findings, post threads, and write the narratives without you. And by the time you see them acting, You're not looking at the warning anymore. You're looking at the consequence. Here's the part most teams miss. Every initiative reaches more audiences than it was briefed for. You build it for one, you ship it to all of them. And the ones you didn't plan for don't stay quiet just because they weren't invited. This is layer 4 of the impact architecture framework. Deliver the impact. For any strategic initiative, the same 5 audiences belong on the map. Start with the audience you're actually building for. Read in full. That's the myth we just diagnosed. Arc'teryx saw the aspirational customer and stopped there, when the same person also held environmental and cultural values that the campaign ran straight into. So reach your target across all their values, not just the one your initiative is built on. Then the silent veto experts, scientists, legal, compliance, IT security, anyone whose factual judgment goes public the moment something visible happens. You can't negotiate with them because they aren't giving an opinion. They are stating what's true. In Arc'teryx's case, they were the environmental scientists nobody asked, and their verdict was settled the instant the photo circulated. Third are the adjacent audiences. Everyone you never briefed, who still see what you ship and reads it through their own frame. The global Arc'teryx customer watched the China campaign land and quietly wonder what the brand now stood for. Fourth, the coalition observers, industry press, advocacy networks, ex-employees, the internal channels. Anyone organized to amplify what happens on terrain they care about. And last, leadership and investors, who price the downside after the fact and remember who caused it. Anti-sports shareholder watch the stock fall in real time. Arc'teryx had the real estate sitting in every one of these 5, but their map only had one box filled in. Mapping all 5 honestly is the first move. The harder part is pressure testing it. Can you actually name who sits in each box for your own initiative? There's a 5-question diagnostic that does exactly that, and I'll walk you step by step in the upcoming companion video. For now, hold on to the lens itself, 5 audiences, not one. Mapping the 5 audiences is the first half. The second half is harder, and it's most initiatives actually break. Each of those 5 audiences needs to hear a different story about the same decision. Each one needs the same strategy, framed for what the audience actually cares about. The target customer needed to hear how the activation fit the brand's environmental promise. The scientists needed to hear that the impact assessment behind it. The global customer needed a reason to keep trusting the brand. The investor needed the downside spelled out. One message can do all of that at once. Try to write it, and it either speaks to one audience and alienates the rest, or it hedges so much that none of them feel addressed. And here's the rule underneath it. If you don't write a story for an audience, that audience writes it for you. And the version they reach for usually isn't the one you had chosen. That's exactly what happened. Pursuit of Beauty was one story, built for one audience, but heard by all 5. 4 of them wrote their own version instead. And the version they wrote came down to one word: hypocrisy. Because the contradiction was visible in a single photograph. That's a test for any initiative. If you can't tell your strategy as a different, honest narrative for each audience it touches, it isn't a finished strategy yet. It's a direction looking for packaging. Arc'teryx is one instance of a dynamic that runs through every strategic initiative. Product launches, restructuring, M&A integration, system migration, policy rollouts. Each one gets briefed for the audience it was built for, then shipped to all the others without narrative. Take a restructuring as an example. Finance needs to hear the cost logic. The team being moved needs to hear what it means for their work and their standing. The rest of the org needs to hear why they're not the next. Same decision, 3 different stories. Skip any of them, and the group writes its own version, usually the most damaging one. So one question to take with you into the next room. Who is the silent veto audience for what you're about to ship? And have we read our own target audience all the way through, not just the slice the brief was built for? In the coming week, I'm publishing 2 how-to videos that will hand you the tools. The first builds a stakeholder map with the 5-question diagnostics. The second builds the audience narrative matrix, the template for writing each audience story. Each one of those tools run in about 20 minutes with an AI prompt or a downloadable Excel template. Subscribe now so you can get notified the day they publish.